Princess Exalvana stood tall as her royal transport docked at Concordia Prime, a massive space station floating between Zarin and Terran space. It was neutral ground, chosen for one reason: to prevent war. The Zarin Imperium and the Terran Federation had been on the brink of open conflict for years, and this meeting was their last chance to find peace. As the docking ramp extended, the Exalvana took a deep breath. She was a princess of the Zarin, a race known for their advanced technology, strict discipline, and emotional control. Her father, the Emperor, had reminded her before she left. A true Zarin never shows weakness. She stepped forward, flanked by two elite Zarin guards in gleaming armor. The station's air smelled different, less purified than the sterile halls of the Zarin capital. And then she saw him. Commander Jack Carter. He stood at ease, hands behind his back, wearing a Terran military uniform. Unlike the formal, polished appearance of Zarin soldiers, his uniform looked practical, worn. His short brown hair was slightly messy, and there was a relaxed confidence in his stance. His eyes, blue and sharp, studied her with curiosity, not fear. Exalvana felt an odd flicker of irritation. He should be bowing or at least showing proper respect. But instead, he gave her a small nod and said, "Welcome to Concordia Prime, Princess." His voice was steady, casual, too casual. Did he not understand who she was? Exalvana kept her expression perfectly neutral. "I expect full cooperation, Commander Carter." He smirked, just a little. "Of course, Princess X." She blinked. "It is Exalvana." "Yeah, but that's a mouthful. Princess X sounds cooler." One of her guards stiffened, clearly insulted. Exalvana herself felt a rush of something unexpected. Shock, perhaps. No one had ever dared to shorten her name like that. She ignored the feeling and walked past him. "Take me to the council chamber." Carter fell into step beside her, his posture loose but somehow always ready. She could tell he was a soldier, even if his attitude was nothing like the rigid Zarin warriors she was used to. As they walked, he glanced sideways at her. "So, how's the Imperium these days? Still as serious as ever?" Exalvana frowned slightly. "Discipline and order are the foundation of civilization." "Right. And humans are just chaos, huh?" He chuckled. "You know, some say chaos is where the best things happen." She didn't reply. She didn't need to. She had one mission: to ensure peace. This human soldier, with his easy smirks and strange ideas, was irrelevant. And yet, for the first time in her life, Princess Exalvana felt something unexpected. She wasn't sure if it was annoyance or curiosity. Princess Exalvana walked through the shining corridors of Concordia Prime, her posture straight, her expression calm. Behind her, Commander Jack Carter walked with an ease that irritated her. He was too relaxed, too casual. Did he not understand the importance of this mission? Her Zarin guards remained silent, their movements precise and disciplined. But Carter, he walked with his hands in his pockets, whistling softly. Whistling. On a diplomatic mission. She clenched her jaw. "Must you make that noise?" Carter smirked. "It's called music. Princess X ever heard of it?" Her sharp eyes met his. "Music is a distraction." "Nah, it's an expression." He tilted his head. "Zarin don't have music. We have battle chants and hymns of honor." Carter whistled again. "That explains a lot." Exalvana chose to ignore him. Humans and their strange customs were not her concern. Peace was. They arrived at the council chamber, a massive room where delegates from both sides waited. The air was heavy with tension. Zarin diplomats stood rigid in their ceremonial robes, while the human representatives leaned back in their chairs, arms crossed. One of the Zarin delegates, Minister Vectar, narrowed his eyes at Carter. "Why is this human soldier here?" Before Exalvana could answer, Carter spoke first. "I'm the princess's escort." He grinned. "Gotta make sure she doesn't get lost." The room fell silent. Minister Vectar looked absolutely horrified. Even the human diplomats looked surprised. Zalvanna slowly turned to Carter. "Commander, a word." She stepped aside, and he followed, hands still in his pockets. She faced him, voice low and controlled. "You will not speak so informally in a diplomatic setting." Carter raised an eyebrow. "You want me to bow and call you Your Highness every 5 seconds. I want you to show proper respect." He smirked again. "Respect is earned, Princess X." Her patience thinned. "I am the heir to the Zyran throne. And I'm just a soldier," Carter said. "Yet here we are, walking side by side." Zalvanna opened her mouth but found she had no immediate reply. He was impossible. Before she could think of a response, an alarm blared through the station. Red lights flashed. A robotic voice echoed through the speakers. "Warning. Unauthorized breach detected in Sector 7. Zalvanna turned sharply. An attack. Carter's easy smile vanished, replaced by something cold and focused. His hand went to his sidearm. "Stay close, Princess. This might get messy." For the first time, Zalvanna saw something else in him. Something dangerous. The relaxed soldier was gone. In his place stood a warrior. And despite herself, she was impressed. The alarm's shrill wail echoed through the corridors of Concordia Prime. Princess Zalvanna stood tall, her expression unreadable, but inside she was calculating possibilities. A breach in Sector 7. Was it sabotage? An assassination attempt? Her Zyran guards immediately moved into a defensive formation, but before she could issue an order, Carter was already moving. His relaxed posture was gone. Now he was all sharp focus and efficiency. With one fluid motion, he drew his sidearm, checking its charge. "We need to move. Now." Zalvanna hesitated. "The council is still inside." I shouldered. "No time." Carter's voice was firm, his blue eyes scanning for danger. "You're the priority." Before she could argue, the entire station shuddered. The floor beneath them vibrated as distant explosions rocked the structure. The emergency lights flickered, and the robotic warning voice blared again. "Structural breach detected. Evacuate Sector 7 immediately." A deep metallic groan filled the air. Then, with a deafening crack, the wall down the corridor buckled. The air pressure shifted instantly, an obvious sign of hull damage. Zalvanna barely had time to react before she felt a powerful force pulling her forward. The station was venting air into space. Her Zyran guards dug their claws into the floor plating, their armor designed to withstand vacuum exposure. But Zalvanna was no ordinary soldier. She fought against the pull, reaching for the emergency stabilizer on her wrist. Before she could activate it, a strong arm wrapped around her waist. Carter. With a grunt of effort, he pulled her against him and launched himself toward the nearest security panel. His free hand slammed against the emergency lockdown switch. A set of heavy blast doors groaned, then slammed shut just before the corridor was completely torn open. The sudden stop sent them both tumbling. Zalvanna landed hard, but Carter was already up, offering her his hand. "You good, Princess?" She hesitated, then took his hand. He pulled her to her feet with surprising ease. "You saved me," she said, still catching her breath. He gave her a crooked grin. "Yeah, well, can't let the peace talks fall apart, 'cause a princess got sucked into space." Zalvanna frowned. "You are far too reckless. And you think too much," Carter countered. "We balance each other out." Before she could reply, his communicator buzzed. He pressed a button, and a voice crackled through. "Commander Carter, report. What's the situation?" Carter exhaled. "Hull breach. Unknown cause. The princess is safe." He glanced at her. "For now." Zalvanna's mind raced. Someone had done this deliberately. And if the attack was meant to kill her, then the real danger was only beginning. Hours after the attack, Concordia Prime was locked down. Engineers worked to repair the damaged section, and security forces combed through the station, searching for answers. But no clear culprit had been found. Princess Zalvanna sat in her private chamber, deep in thought. The attack had been precise, too precise to be an accident. Someone wanted to sabotage the peace talks. But who? A rogue faction from the Zyran Imperium? A Terran extremist group? Or was there a third party in play? Her thoughts were interrupted by a sharp knock at the door. She turned as the door slid open. Carter leaned against the frame, arms crossed. Still thinking too much, Princess. She frowned. I am considering possible threats. Something you should also be doing. He smirked. Relax, security's on high alert. Nobody's getting near you again. She sighed. We should be focusing on the negotiations, but no. Now you're stuck on a station with nothing to do for a few hours. Carter finished. Which is perfect timing, actually. Zalvanna narrowed her eyes. Perfect for what? He grinned. The Festival of Worlds. It's happening right now in the Central Plaza. She stiffened. A festival. At a time like this. That's exactly why you should come. He stepped closer, his voice unusually serious. Look, I get it. You were raised in a world of strategy and discipline. But humans, we fight when we have to. Sure. But we also live. We celebrate. He paused. You should see it for yourself. Zalvanna hesitated. Attending a festival was frivolous, unnecessary. And yet there was something about Carter's words that made her curious. Finally, she nodded. Very well. I will observe. The Central Plaza was nothing like she expected. Brightly colored banners hung from the high ceilings. The air was filled with unfamiliar scents, Terran spices, Zyran delicacies, even food from other species she didn't recognize. Music drifted through the space, but not the rigid battle chants of her homeworld. This was different. Lively. Energetic. Carter walked beside her, clearly enjoying her reaction. Not what you're used to, No, she admitted. It is chaotic. He chuckled. That's the best part. They walked past a group of humans playing some kind of rhythmic instruments, their hands moving in perfect harmony. Another group was dancing, their movements fluid and natural. Then, to her surprise, Carter held out a hand. Wanna give it a try? Zalvanna stared at him. You wish me to dance. He grinned. It's just moving to the music. No strategy, no planning. Just feel it. Everything in her training told her to refuse. But something in his gaze, steady, challenging, made her pause. And then, for the first time in her life, Princess Zalvanna did something completely without thought. She took his hand. The moment Zalvanna's hand touched Carter's, she felt an odd jolt, not of pain, but of something unfamiliar. She was trained to control her emotions, to suppress unnecessary feelings. And yet, standing here in the middle of a chaotic human festival, she felt something strange. Carter grinned. All right, Princess, just follow my lead. She narrowed her eyes. If this is some human trick. Relax, he said, stepping closer. You're thinking too much again. Before she could argue, he moved, pulling her gently into the rhythm of the music. It was nothing like the structured movements of Zyran combat drills. It was loose, unpredictable. She was used to control. This was the complete opposite. And yet, it wasn't unpleasant. She focused on Carter, watching how he moved. He was confident, unafraid of looking foolish. His steps weren't perfect, but he didn't seem to care. He just enjoyed the moment. Zalvanna tried to mimic him. At first, it felt unnatural, like her body refused to move so freely. But Carter gave her a reassuring nod. That's it. Just let go a little. Let go. A simple phrase, but for a Zyran royal, it was nearly impossible. But for some reason, here, now, she tried. And to her surprise, she found herself enjoying it. She wasn't sure how long they danced, but eventually, the music slowed and they stopped. She was breathing harder than expected, her heartbeat fast. Was it from the dancing? Or something else? Carter chuckled. Not bad, Princess X. Maybe there's hope for you yet. She straightened, regaining her composure. It was interesting. He smirked. That's human for I had fun. Before she could respond, a sudden noise broke the moment. A loud crack, followed by panicked screams. Carter's smile vanished instantly, his instincts kicking in. Get down. A second later, an explosion rocked the plaza. The blast was small, controlled, but enough to send people scrambling. Security alarms blared as station guards rushed in. Smoke filled the air, and Xalvana's senses sharpened. Someone had attacked the festival. Carter grabbed her wrist. We need to move. Xalvana didn't argue. Together, they weaved through the chaos, avoiding panicked civilians. Carter's grip on her wrist was firm, guiding her with the efficiency of a soldier who had seen combat before. A voice crackled over Carter's earpiece. Commander. Unknown hostiles in the plaza. Repeat, unknown hostiles. Carter cursed under his breath. Figures. Can't even enjoy a dance without someone trying to kill us. Xalvana's eyes scanned the area. This attack isn't random. They're targeting us. Carter glanced at her. Then let's not make it easy for them. Xalvana nodded, her warrior instincts fully awakened. Whoever was behind this attack had made one fatal mistake. They had underestimated both of them. Smoke filled the air as the festival plaza erupted into chaos. Civilians ran in every direction, their screams mixing with the blaring alarms. Security officers rushed in, weapons drawn, but the enemy had already made their move. Xalvana stayed close to Carter, her sharp eyes scanning the area. We must identify the attackers. Carter pulled her behind a collapsed food stall, peering through the smoke. I count at least 6 hostiles. Light armor, fast movement. Not your people, not mine. Xalvana followed his gaze. The attackers moved like trained operatives, weaving through the confusion with precise coordination. They weren't firing randomly. They were searching. Searching for her. Her jaw tightened. They want me alive. Carter's grip on his weapon tightened. Well, that's not happening. Before she could respond, one of the attackers spotted them. The enemy raised a weapon. Bang! A single shot rang out, and the hostile dropped instantly. Carter didn't hesitate. Move. Xalvana followed as Carter led her through the wreckage, using cover where possible. The enemy regrouped quickly, opening fire. Energy blasts sizzled past them, hitting walls and stalls, sending sparks flying. Carter fired back, his movements sharp and efficient. Damn, these guys are good. Xalvana pulled a small blade from her belt. Not good enough. One of the attackers rushed toward them. Xalvana reacted instantly, stepping forward with the speed of a trained warrior. The enemy barely had time to aim before she was upon him, her blade slicing through his weapon, disabling it. With a swift kick, she sent him crashing to the ground. Carter raised an eyebrow. Okay, that was impressive. She didn't reply. Another attacker charged, and this time Carter handled it. 3 quick shots, center mass. The enemy collapsed. The remaining attackers hesitated, clearly realizing their plan was failing. Then, before Carter or Xalvana could advance, a loud hiss filled the air. Small metal canisters landed around them. Gas. Carter's eyes widened. Damn it. Cover your... Too late. The gas spread fast, thick and unnatural. Xalvana's vision blurred. Her body felt heavy. Her knees buckled. The last thing she saw was Carter lunging toward her before everything faded to black. She woke up in darkness. Her body was restrained, metal cuffs around her wrists. The air was cold, sterile. A dim blue light flickered overhead. A voice echoed from the shadows. Welcome back, Princess Xalvana. She lifted her head, eyes narrowing. Who are you? A figure stepped forward. A tall, masked being, their voice dripping with amusement. Someone who intends to reshape this war. And you, "Dear Princess," are the key. Zalvanna's heart pounded. Where was Carter? And more importantly, how was she going to escape? Zalvanna pulled against the metal cuffs, testing their strength. Solid. Reinforced. Whoever had taken her knew exactly how strong a Zyran warrior was. The masked figure stepped closer, their voice smooth, controlled. "I must admit, Princess, you lasted longer than I expected. Humans fight well, don't they?" Zalvanna's eyes narrowed. "You underestimate them." The figure chuckled. "On the contrary, I find them quite unpredictable. That's why I had to remove your little protector." Her body tensed. "What have you done with Carter?" The figure tilted their head. "Still thinking about him. Interesting. But don't worry. He's alive. For now." A flicker of relief passed through her, but she buried it quickly. She could not afford weakness. The figure continued. "You see, Princess, this war between Zyran and humans is a waste. Your people are too rigid, too trapped in tradition. The humans, too reckless, too wild." A pause. "But together, under the right leadership, they could become something greater." Zalvanna frowned. "You wish to control both sides." The masked figure leaned closer. "I wish to unite them. Through strength. Through force." Her blood ran cold. This was no mere assassin or extremist. This was a warlord in the making. As Zalvanna straightened, her voice calm. "You are a fool." The figure sighed. "I had hoped you would see reason. But no matter. You will serve my cause, one way or another." The door behind them hissed open. Two heavily armed guards entered. The masked figure nodded toward them. "Take her to the ship. We have much work to do." The guards stepped forward. Zalvanna tensed, preparing to fight. Then the room exploded. A deafening blast rocked the chamber, sending the guards flying. Smoke and debris filled the air. Zalvanna barely had time to react before a familiar figure emerged from the chaos, weapon raised. "You seriously thought a little gas would take me out?" "Carter." Her heart leaped. He was bruised, his uniform torn, but his eyes burned with fury. The masked figure cursed and disappeared into the smoke. Carter fired after them but missed. "Damn it!" He turned to Zalvanna, rushing forward. "You all right, Princess?" She exhaled. "I am unharmed, but I require assistance." Carter grinned. Yeah, hold still." He aimed his pistol at the cuffs and fired. The restraints sparked, then fell away. Zalvanna rubbed her wrists. "You came for me." Carter smirked. "I did promise to keep you safe." She met his gaze, something unspoken passing between them. But there was no time for words. The enemy was still out there. And now, they had to stop him. The alarms blared as Carter helped Zalvanna to her feet. Smoke filled the chamber, and the sound of distant shouting echoed through the corridors. The enemy was regrouping. "We need to move. Now," Carter said, gripping his weapon tightly. Zalvanna nodded, her warrior instincts kicking in. "Where are we?" Carter glanced around. Some kind of enemy base. Underground, maybe. He tapped the side of his helmet. "My comms are jammed. No way to call for backup." Zalvanna's eyes narrowed. "Then we will fight our way out." Carter smirked. "Now you're talking my language." Suddenly, heavy footsteps echoed down the hall. More guards were coming. "This way." Carter pulled Zalvanna toward the nearest exit, but just as they reached the doorway, a metal barrier slammed shut in front of them. "They're locking us in," Zalvanna muttered. Carter turned, scanning the room. "Then we find another way." A ventilation shaft was built into the ceiling, large enough for a person to crawl through. Zalvanna gave Carter a skeptical look. "Humans truly enjoy using air vents, don't they?" Carter grinned. "Hey, if it works, don't question it." With a graceful leap, Zalvanna grabbed the edge of the vent and pulled herself up effortlessly. She reached down and helped Carter climb in. Just as they disappeared inside, the doors burst open, and enemy soldiers rushed in. "They're gone," one of them shouted. From inside the vent, Carter whispered, "Idiots." Zelvana smirked. "Keep moving." They crawled through the ventilation system, careful not to make noise. The base was massive, with multiple levels and security checkpoints. After several minutes, they reached another opening. Carter peeked through the grate. "Looks like a hangar." And there, he pointed at a small shuttle parked near the exit. "Our way out." Zelvana examined the guards patrolling below. "How do you propose we reach it without being seen?" Carter's grin was almost mischievous. "We don't. We make a scene." Before she could question him, he pulled a grenade from his belt and tossed it toward a fuel container near the far wall. Boom! The explosion sent shockwaves through the hangar, throwing soldiers to the ground. Alarms shrieked. "Go!" Carter shouted, jumping down. Zelvana followed, landing gracefully. They sprinted toward the shuttle as bullets and energy blasts flew past them. Carter took down 2 guards with precise shots, while Zelvana disarmed another with a swift kick, flipping him onto his back. They reached the shuttle, and Carter jumped into the pilot's seat. "Hope you're not afraid of a rough ride." Zelvana strapped in. "Just fly, human." The engines roared to life, and the ship lifted off. Enemy fire rained down, but Carter maneuvered expertly, weaving through the chaos. As they burst into the sky, leaving the enemy base behind, Zelvana allowed herself a small smile. They had escaped, but the real battle was still ahead. The shuttle soared through the sky, the enemy base shrinking below them. Carter gripped the controls, pushing the engines to their limit. Red warning lights flashed on the console. "Engines overheating," he muttered. "Great." Zelvana glanced at him. "Will this ship hold?" Carter smirked. "If it doesn't, at least we'll crash together." She rolled her eyes. Encouraging. Suddenly, the ship rocked violently. A missile streaked past them, missing by inches. "They're still after us," Zelvana said. Carter checked the radar. "Yeah, and they brought friends." 2 enemy fighters were closing in fast, their weapons locked onto the shuttle. "Hold on." Carter yanked the controls, diving the ship into a sharp descent. Energy blasts zipped past them, shaking the entire hull. Zelvana clenched the armrest. "Do you actually have a plan?" Carter grinned. "I always have a plan." He twisted the ship, dodging another blast. Then, at the last second, he pulled up, skimming just above the surface of a rocky canyon. The enemy fighters followed, struggling to match his movements. Now, Carter pressed a switch, releasing a burst of debris from the back of the shuttle. The first enemy fighter crashed into the canyon wall, exploding on impact. The second one swerved, barely avoiding the same fate. "One down, 1 to go," Carter smirked. But before he could finish, a cold voice crackled through the comms. "Impressive, but you will not escape me." Zelvana stiffened. "That voice." Carter frowned. "Who is that?" The radar beeped as a massive warship appeared above them. It was sleek, black, and armed to the teeth. "That is our true enemy," Zelvana said, eyes narrowing. "The one behind everything." The masked figure's voice continued. "You should have accepted my offer, Princess. Now, you leave me no choice." Energy cannons powered up on the warship, their glow bright and deadly. Carter swore. "Yeah, I don't like where this is going." Zelvana turned to him. "Carter, listen to me. There is only one way to escape." He glanced at her. "I'm not gonna like it, am I?" She took a deep breath. "We must jump to hyperspace. Now." Carter stared at the console. "This ship's hyperdrive is barely functional. It is our only chance." The warship's weapons fired. A beam of pure energy raced toward them. "Do it," Zelvana commanded. Carter gritted his teeth and slammed the hyperdrive switch. For a split second, time seemed to freeze. Then, boom! The ship rocketed forward, vanishing into hyperspace just as the energy blast struck. The enemy warship was left behind. But Carter and Vanna had no idea where they were headed. The stars outside the cockpit blurred as the shuttle hurtled through hyperspace. Carter let out a breath, running a hand through his hair. Well, that was close. Vanna unstrapped herself, her sharp eyes fixed on the navigation screen. Where have we jumped? Carter tapped a few buttons, then frowned. Good news. We're alive. Bad news. I have no idea where we are. The screen showed an unknown region of space, far from any known star systems. Vanna sighed. At least we escaped. Carter glanced at her, his expression softening. You okay? She hesitated, then nodded. Thanks to you. Carter grinned. Yeah, I'm pretty amazing. Vanna smirked. You are reckless. Same thing. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, the ship shuddered slightly as hyperspace disengaged. Outside, an unfamiliar planet loomed. A lush, green world with vast oceans. Carter whistled. Well, that looks promising. Vanna studied the planet. Unknown, but habitable. Guess we're making a pit stop. Carter steered the shuttle downward, guiding it into the atmosphere. As they descended, something unexpected happened. A massive structure came into view. A floating city, ancient but still intact. Vanna's eyes widened. This architecture. It is not Siren. Not human. Carter frowned. Then who built it? The ship's scanners beeped. Life Sciganus DT. Vanna and Carter exchanged a look. Looks like we're not alone, Carter muttered. Vanna tightened her grip on her blade. Then let us meet our hosts. As the ship landed on a platform, Carter smirked. You know, Princess, for someone who struggled to stay composed around me, you've come a long way. Vanna rolled her eyes but smiled slightly. And you, human, are still impossible. They stepped out together, ready for whatever came next. A new adventure had just begun.